Welcome back into the Vandy Sports Podcast on the 440 Sports Network. I'm your host, Billy Derrick, alongside Joey Dwyer. It is a Saturday, December the 9th. We're calling this our State of the Union podcast, Joey. We're going to give a State of the Union for football and a State of the Union for basketball. But first, Anchor Impact. A few words on the Anchor Impact. Commodore Nation, get closer to Vanderbilt athletics than ever before with Anchor Impact, the official NIL collective for Vanderbilt University. Gain access to unmatched exclusive coverage and be a part of a one-of-a-kind community. As an Anchor Impact member, you gain exclusive privileges and benefits, offering deeper engagement with student athletes, coaches, staff, and the entire Vanderbilt community. Access behind-the-scenes content, exclusive events, unique merchandise, and personalized experiences, creating an unparalleled connection with the student athlete's journey. You also become a catalyst for change, redefining the landscape of college athletics and showcasing the potential impact of NIL on student athletes' lives. Help the Commodores thrive and contribute now by logging on to anchorimpact.com/register. Joey, that kind of brings us right to the football State of the Union, and that's where we'll start. We'll start there. We got a couple of pieces of news I want to get to initially here. Randon Fontenette, kid from TCU, Vanderbilt has snagged. Of course, they recruited him last year, and he was one of their targets. He ended up going to TCU. He has committed to Vanderbilt, so he'll be on the team next year. And also Matt Hayball. Matt Hayball has been named an All-American, Walter Camp All-American. He's the 20th player to receive All-America honors in the modern era and first since Zach Cunningham in 2016. And he's the fourth Vanderbilt punter named an All-American since 1982, joining Jim Arnold, Ricky Anderson, and Bill Marinangel. So wanted to get those couple of pieces of news out there. Joey, football State of the Union. Good piece of news there. Thursday night, I want to say, with Randon Fontenette. And all of a sudden, Joey, nothing really substantial. Like, obviously, Fontenette, ever since the NIL piece broke, is really the only player that has come in. I'm sure this weekend, with a big weekend of visits, I'm sure you'll have some, whether it's early next week or whenever. But overall, Joey, just kind of the feeling and the vibe feels a little bit better. Now, again, you're coming off a 2-10 season. You lost London Humphreys, lost a couple of defensive pieces, also lost Jaden McGowan. But I keep thinking back to, I think, our last conversation, Joey. None of the losses, other than Humphreys, have been catastrophic. The losses that would have been catastrophic were C.J. Taylor and Langston Patterson, and they found a way to keep those guys. So we talk about it with basketball sometimes, Joey, right? Just keep swimming, just staying above water somehow. And Vanderbilt has done that, I think, the last few weeks, retaining the guys they absolutely have to retain. And with the NIL movement, I think the future is bright. Again, it's after a 2-10 season, so it's hard saying that, but I think the good thing is there's no results that we have to talk about. It is a lot of pointing to the future. So I understand what people say. I'll believe it when I see it. But Joey, kind of the overall feeling and vibe, I would say, has shifted. I don't know about drastically, but to a decent margin, at least on the football side of things.
The vibe around that program is about as good as it could be for a 2-10 team that barely has any players on their roster, Billy.
Yeah,
I couldn't have imagined that the vibe would be this good around the program at this point of the offseason. I guess this would be 2 weeks to the day that they got blown up by Tennessee and walked off the field. Since then, they've lost pretty much all their guys, and we still feel really good about where they're at. That's a testament to kind of the infrastructure of this thing and how Clark Lee's been able to get people on board and get people back again. We've talked about that NIL a lot. It's really hard to overstate that. We heard something this week. I don't know if you wanted to mention this, but that podcast that I don't know if you have the credit for it, but there was a podcast this week by some pretty reputable people that Chris sent us. And at the 27-minute mark, one of them said Vanderbilt may be in the top 3 of the SEC in terms of NIL backing. How do you overstate that, Billy? That's an unbelievable phrase there. And whether it's top 3, whether it's top 5, whether it's top 7, that's still tremendous as compared to where Vanderbilt was, which was this seller of the SEC 2 weeks ago. It's just been a drastic change, it feels like, and Vanderbilt's really got people on board. Fontenette, I think, is some evidence that Vanderbilt can compete in this era, and Vanderbilt does have the resources to go out and get guys like that. That was a guy who's going to be a starter at TCU next year. And TCU's defense was not very good this year, gave up 70 points to Oklahoma, but he was a rotational safety as a freshman. He's physical, he's long, has really good size, and I think has good range as well, and can probably tap into that range a little bit more. Pairing him with Dante Carter on the back end and also having Marlon Sewell, I think, is a really nice development for them in the secondary. They're going to be young in the secondary, and they're probably going to be young through a lot of their roster, but next year it might be one of their more fun teams because you'll probably be able to see the vision a little bit more, and you'll be able to see kind of how they're building this thing and that they have young guys on the roster who are contributing and who are getting better. Billy, if that doesn't happen next year, obviously there's going to be some things that have to be done, but it feels like they're heading in a positive direction, and this build feels more real than it has in the past. It feels like Corkley has more of a chance than he's had in the past.
Yeah, the word commitment comes to mind, Joey. I mean, you know, every SEC team outside of Vanderbilt for an extremely long time was 100% committed to football, right? I think you could say up until this point, Vanderbilt University has not been committed to football until arguably right now, like 100% foolproof. You know, we're going in, right? And a lot of this, again, give credit to Coach Lee, Barton Simmons, anybody else on the staff that was a part of this, the donors, of course, that ponied up for this. Obviously, John Ingram's name has been thrown around. I'm sure there's some other big names that you guys wouldn't be surprised by, but you know, the commitment. You know, it's one thing, and I've said this several times these last couple of weeks. It's one thing for a donor to keep up with the program and watch the games and, you know, support from their house, wherever they live. It's another thing for them to give their own hard-earned money, right? Obviously, there's a ton of money within Vanderbilt University, within alums. You know, Vanderbilt is up there, as Chris Lee has talked about. We talked about it in our last episode. You know, they're up there with Texas A&M. And they should be up there with the big dogs. There's no reason why Vanderbilt financially shouldn't compete. And in today's day and age, financial stability is what you have to have. And it feels like they've got it. And I've heard some good things, Joey, about, and they mentioned that in the podcast, McCready and Siskey. It's a great podcast. Go back and listen to it. I think we put it on our board. But if you want to look it up on YouTube, McCready and Siskey podcast, I think it's at the 27-minute mark. But they talked about this, and I love how Tyler brought it up. He said they've got people within their donor base that, you know, if they need X player, they will give X amount of money. Like that. That's kind of where they're at right now, Joe. And I think it's a dangerous spot to be in, both positively and negatively. Like it can really help you, of course, getting dudes into school and into your program and making an immediate impact. But the other side of this is, if say they you know, we look at their roster next year and they stand up with Florida, kind of the middle tier, and you're like, okay, that, you know, they'll be able to maybe even compete with the Tennessee. Maybe not quite Georgia yet, but maybe even Ole Miss, right? Just kind of get to that level, and they still don't, right? We're still talking about coaching issues and coaching concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't get this type of money again. So that's kind of where I look at it, Joey. Like, this is such an important time. I think credit to Bruno Reagan, former Commodore, who tweeted about that. He said it's such an important time, and I love the fact that Vanderbilt is getting some NIL money pumped in. But if you don't succeed, you may never get this type of commitment again. And I could be wrong there. You know, maybe say in a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, Vanderbilt has a new coach for whatever reason. Maybe he does, right? Maybe they do get that same kind of commitment. But you're kind of walking a thin line almost, Joey. Like, okay, you better win, right? Right. I mean, we're very far away from next season, but I can already feel that type of conversation starting, right? The expectations. I mean, we talked with expectations about this past season, Joey.
Mm-hmm.
With what's happening right now, I mean, higher expectations next year, I would even say. I mean, maybe start to a point to a bowl game. I know there's a lot still to happen, but, you know, the expectations all of a sudden are amped up because of this. And it's a great spot to be in, of course, but it's also it can be dangerous. I'm not saying it will be, but it can be.
Yeah, it's interesting for me because I think next year I view more as kind of a step year to where you get young talent in, you get the transfers, and you kind of prove that you can compete in this landscape, and
Kick
you
it
prove
off.
that maybe you can pick off a win or two here or there. I'm not expecting them to really go to a bowl game unless they land an unbelievable transfer class, but I am expecting them to show that they've taken a step as a program, and I feel like this one would be a little bit more legitimate than the last one. Vanderbilt's got a real chance here. I think Clark Lee is probably the perfect guy to spearhead this because he has a relationship with the boosters, because he can talk to them and get them on board with this. I think he's done a really nice job, and guys that are associated with him as well have done a really nice job of getting this thing kind of reared away. What's got to happen, like you said, is the on-field results, though, and he's got to prove that it's worth the boosters' while. They have a relationship with him and they love him, but also you got to win football games to be able to get those guys to stay behind you, and relationships go so far, but winning cures everything. And that's what Clark Lee's really got to do now. He's got those 2 wins, and you saw how much that did for him. That generated an entire offseason of hype, and it was 2 wins. So if Clark Lee can figure something out in terms of in-game coaching and figure out how to get this team to a spot that it needs to be, I think you're in really good shape. But like you said, there's a lot to prove. Clark Lee's got to prove that the guys that left weren't as important as some people think they were. I think he talked to Aria or said something to Aria at one point about effort in the Kentucky game, and kind of showing that maybe they weren't as far along in terms of their culture and their infrastructure as they had maybe hoped. But moving forward, maybe he can prove that this team is going to play hard for him, and that this transfer exodus isn't necessarily a bad thing. Also, I want to look at the admissions, and I think you touched on that briefly. Yeah. Fontenette, I think, proves that maybe they have done some things in admissions, and we're going to find out more about the admissions moving forward. But it feels like maybe they've taken a step there, and I think that's another pretty crucial thing that was mentioned on that podcast as well. Is it's not only if they can get money, because they're still picking out of a smaller pool. I go back to Ezra Magnon, who lost a year's worth of credits transferring to Vanderbilt. Ray Davis had some trouble with school at Vanderbilt. It's going to be tough if these guys are going to have whatever GPA, or have to have whatever credits, or have to be whatever year in school. Obviously, you have to have standards. It's Vanderbilt. They're always going to have standards. But right now, it feels like that's probably the main thing holding them back. And we'll have to see how relaxed those are. And I'm not saying they should be incredibly relaxed, because I think a lot of people would not be in support of that. And that kind of takes away the mystique of Vanderbilt at points. But admissions are going to be a thing as well. Right now, they only have the freshmen and the grad transfers to pick from for the most part. So we'll see, Billy. It's going to be really interesting to see how that admission stuff plays out. But right now they got the NIL reared away, and it's time to go win some ball games, Clark.
Yeah, I mean, and it starts with weekends like this, Joey. Big transfer visit weekend. I'm going to kind of run through them right now. A couple of offensive linemen: Jonathan Mendoza from Yale, Jacob Rizzi from Harvard. A couple of receivers: Cyrus Allen from Louisiana Tech, Abdur Rahman Yassin from Purdue. Got an edge rusher from Purdue as well, Corday Sidnor. Louisiana Tech quarterback Hank Bachmeier, Eastern Washington DB Marlon Jones, and Alabama State receiver Keyshawn Johnson. You also got a guy, Colby Taylor, cornerback from Wyoming, defensive back. So he'll be visiting this weekend as well. So, Joey, big weekend. And of course, you look at those offensive linemen as guys that could come in and help this program right away. A couple of those receivers too. Cyrus Allen, I really like. I saw some of his tape yesterday with Louisiana Tech. Like the Purdue guy, Yassin, who could be, somewhat of a Will Shepherd type replacement. Probably more of a possession receiver type guy. But been kind of trying to watch some of these guys, and I think, Joey, this could be a big weekend. I'm not saying they get all these guys, but I mean, if you got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you picked up 4 or 5 out of those, I think 8, 8 dudes, 8 or 9. I'm sure there could be more visiting. That's what I want to credit Commodore's recruiting on Twitter there. But we'll see, because these kind of weekends, Joey, are when you really know, okay, the kids see the commitment, right? And so I don't know if you've seen or heard or learned much about any of those guys, but the guys that stand out to me are the offensive linemen and the receivers. I mean, if they can get one of either Mendoza or Rizzi, that'd be great. If they get both, that'd be phenomenal. And then both those receivers too. I like both Allen and Yassine with their film. And, Allen played with Bachmeier. So you would think, I don't know if they're a package deal or if, that's if Bachmeier decides to go somewhere, kind of Allen follows him, but we'll see. But Joey, big weekend nonetheless. And those, it's a good group. I think it's a solid group. Mendoza and Rizzi are basically being looked at by everybody. I mean, a lot of other big schools. So I don't know if anything stands out to you about any of those guys.
Yeah, I think the linemen are where I really look and say they could really change some things if they get those two guys. And I'm not sure that they will, but getting them on campus is huge. I don't know that Cyrus Allen is on campus this weekend. I heard his visit might be delayed. That's just a rumor, though. So we'll see if he's actually on campus. But nonetheless, him being in the mix with Vanderbilt, I think, is a real big thing. That's a guy who is really gifted and somebody that they wouldn't have been able to get out of the portal in past years. I think the proof is in the pudding this weekend. They only had 3 transfer commits last year. One was Prince Colley, who redshirted this year. One was the kicker, and one was Aeneas DeCosmo, grad transfer. Billy, they got a lot more than 3 on campus this weekend, and they've already got 2 commits. So you kind of see the vision here, and you kind of see things might be transforming a little bit, and a weekend like this really proves it, especially if you can get results, especially if this weekend goes well for Vanderbilt. They're going to have a lot more big weekends like this, and to capitalize on this one would kind of bolster those weekends moving forward. So this is one of the most important weekends in Vanderbilt football in a long time, probably more important than 3/4 of the game days this year. So Billy, they got a chance, and I don't know that we've been able to say that a whole lot in the past. This weekend kind of proves that to me. And even you look, I don't think we've harped on this enough. Prince Colley is essentially a transfer edition this year, if you want to posture it that way. It's like the guy who says you get an injured player back at the trade deadline and you basically get a new player. It's like when the Braves got Mike Soroka at the deadline back. But I think that's another important piece. Prince Colley might be one of the more gifted transfers that they have, and he'll be playing his first season this year. So Vanderbilt's got a chance, and it's getting longer, it's getting more athletic, and it's getting faster. We'll see if that trend continues through the portal this offseason, but I have no reason to believe that it doesn't. I also don't have a reason to believe they're going to win 7 or 8 games this year, but I think they're definitely heading in the right direction after a 2-10 year.
Yeah, hearing some good things on the Joe Sloan train for offensive coordinator. He's the quarterback's coach at LSU. Again, nothing has happened yet, but if they could land him, Joey, that'd be massive. And then all of a sudden you kind of give, if say they do bring in Coach Sloan from LSU, you would sort of give him the reins to bring in a quarterback, right? Go find you a quarterback, and he could recruit. I mean, he got Jaden Daniels developed into a Heisman Trophy candidate. They've also, I don't know if the backup Garrett Nussmeier has the starting job lined up right now at LSU. If he doesn't, I think that could be a potential target for Vandy. So again, there's still so much to happen. Still need a strength coach as well. And the biggest thing though, Joey, is dudes. I mean, you need players, right? And I think you could, by the end of this month, you could probably see, 10 to 15 train. I mean, I would say up there, right? 10 to 15 guys coming in here. It's going to be a brand new, I say brand new, maybe not. I mean, you're going to still recognize several players, but especially offensively, Joey, this is going to be totally different. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I really don't. It's
a really risky thing, but it's a thing that could be.
Yeah.
But right now they don't have any players. So we can't say they're going to be awesome right now, but they got a chance. And that's kind of the message I keep harping back on.
Yeah. And, Joey, it's like an NFL team. I mean, you go 2-14 or whatever. I mean, you're looking forward to that draft pick and maybe even another additional trade up for another one. I mean, you need picks, right? Vandy needs players right now. That's where they're at. And this is the chance. This is the draft, the college draft almost to, and get the guys out of the portal. Their recruiting class is stable. I mean, I don't think there's anything to worry about Carter and Edwards or any of those guys. Fontenette coming in, I think, was big. Former 4-star recruit. Big get for Vandy. So football-wise, Joey, of course, like I said, big weekend for the visits on campus here this weekend. And then I would guess next week we get some commits rolling in. Again, I don't know how many, but big weekend financially, of course, with a lot of these conversations with players. And you can sell playing time and money as well. So football State of the Union, of course, vibes better, not great, but better. And you could argue hope is in the air for once this entire year for Vanderbilt football. I mean, at least a glimmer.
First time since September.
Yeah, I mean, and Joe, we talked about. We said this postseason is gonna be, this offseason is gonna be more entertaining than a regular season, and it already has been. We've got Chris blowing up the message board a week ago, and you got just overall. We talked to people, Joey, in and out, within the program, and just the feeling overall, I think, is better. The Earl Bennett tweet. I mean, I don't think Earl Bennett would have tweeted that just out of the blue. I mean, one of the better players to ever play there. So we'll see. Overall vibes are better, but you got to keep going here, and we'll see what happens here in the next few weeks for this program. Let's move over to basketball. Vanderbilt basketball coming off a loss to San Francisco. Excuse me. Before we do, though, our basketball content this season is brought to you by the Wash House. They are a presenting sponsor for hoops. Are you dreading laundry day? Is it stealing time to do the things that you truly enjoy? Let the laundry professionals at the Wash House take care of that for you. They've got 2 convenient locations in Nashville. You can drop off your dirty laundry, and their professional attendants can give you back the one thing you can never have enough of. That's your time. Within 24 hours, pick up your nicely folded, fresh and clean laundry ready to be put away. Log on to washhouseclean.com or stop in today and get your time back.
Billy, speaking of basketball, I heard you're on the hot seat. 20-point loss today for the 4th grade team that you coach. Heard it was poor coaching. I heard you're losing the locker room. What do you have to say to that?
Next question. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous.
Would you say you're on the hot seat 2 games in?
Yeah, I can't answer that.
Do you know what your net's going to be next week, Billy?
We don't look at the net this time of year, Joey.
Billy, you're not going to make the playoffs.
The net doesn't matter this time of year.
I heard you didn't get enough size, and I heard you weren't getting after the refs enough, basically, is what I'm hearing, based on how that other team was operating.
You know what? Get this guy out of here. Who is this guy?
Billy, they were working the refs. They had the 2 best players in the whole time. How do you let them do that?
There was a lot of joking around and laughter going on, and I was trying to tell my guys what's funny about this. I mean, we're down by 20. Come on, guys. Mm-hmm. There's nothing funny about this. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to smile about right now. So we'll
tough week of practice for the guys.
It's going to be a tough week of practice for the boys this week.
For the 4th graders, yeah.
We're back at it. We're back at it tomorrow. So,
is there a practice tomorrow on a Sunday?
Yeah. Yes.
This is a very serious league.
Yes, it is. I'll look forward to these post games every week.
Where you don't answer my questions.
Yeah. Joey, let's talk real basketball. SEC level hoops. Vanderbilt loses to San Francisco 73-60. You were at the Battle of the Boulevard. I was in attendance at Memorial, and it's really nothing different. I mean, I told you after the game. First thing I kind of realized was, again, another dead gym, another bad crowd, just not a lot going. Of course, you can't blame it on the crowd, but again, you get into the game, and I think it was 5 minutes into the game, Jerry pulls Tyron Lawrence out of the game, and he is screaming at him. I mean, like he was letting him have it after the game, calls him out. You got to be better. Stack goes, I don't know what he was doing. I think he didn't run a set, and then he didn't block out. He also said that Lawrence was the cause of, I think, eight points, or I don't know how he worded that, but just a lot, Joey, a lot going on, and none of it's really good. It's very concerning. I mean, that was as complete as Vanderbilt will get and has been this season, getting Colin Smith back. They had all 16 players available, and they just got thumped by San Francisco. A good team, but you can't lose by 13 at home to a San Francisco team who traveled all the way from San Francisco on exam week. And you look like the dead team. So there's no more excuses. This team's not going to the tournament. There will be no bubble talk at all. They're back below 500. Like I said, they had everyone healthy, but they couldn't rebound, Joey. They got out rebounded by 18. I mean, they couldn't get anything going offensively. There's no go-to scorer. I can go on and on. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 big issues with this team. It's a lot like the football season. I mean, I people ask me whether they text or call or whatever in person. I'm like, how long do you have? I mean, there's a lot. It's not just every time. A lot of fans, I think, get short-sighted when they ask that. Like, what's the problem? What's going on? Well, there's not just one problem. I mean, there's a lot with this team right now. And so, State of the Union, what's the State of the Union for Vandy Hoops right now, Joey?
I think you summed it up well. To start, I know we don't like to only talk about computer numbers, but I think them being the lowest Power 5 team in the net, again, under a Louisville team that has just been an embarrassment this year, I think that tells you a lot. And Bill, you're right. There's not one thing to pinpoint. They haven't really fully gotten healthy, but that doesn't really matter. Like, looking at the numbers and looking at what they've done so far, there's much bigger issues than not being healthy. Like you said, they haven't rebounded. Even when they had their best 2 rebounders in the game, they didn't rebound very well. Their defense has not been good at all. And I think that was something where we were concerned because we knew their numbers individually were bad, but we didn't think as a whole they would be this bad. Maybe they will be better. I think the place where they'll be better is offensively. They have a lot of plays, and I think it's hard for guys when they're playing out of position to kind of get the rhythm of those plays. But right now, offensively, they just have no flow. They look incredibly stagnant right now. And I think that's obviously due a little bit to those plays, but even when Stack doesn't call an action or he doesn't call a set, there's no movement. It's a guy going in the paint and getting stopped and kicking it back out, or a guy trying to isolate or going to pick and roll and it doesn't work. Billy, there's just no flow offensively. They can't rebound. They're not playing defense. You can't win basketball games like that, even if you're the more talented team, which I think they were on Wednesday. I think San Francisco just plays better together, and they know how to win. Vanderbilt doesn't seem to know how to do that quite yet. Although they have closed out some close games, I have a lot of concerns about this. And even if I could totally see them going and winning some SEC games. But even if that happens, I just think this thing is going in such a poor direction generally. There's not many people at the gym. They're not winning games. Their resume is already kind of tanked. I don't know that. How do I say this? I think the guys believe in each other, but I don't know if there's a whole lot of positive morale going on. And I don't know how there would be. I think we've experienced this a lot. It's just tense. And the 2-10 football season didn't feel as tense as this does right now. And I think that's not something that's unique to this year. I think at this point last year, it felt pretty tense as well. This year, I think even more to a bigger extent. The feel around there just isn't good. And I think at some points that's even more important than the record and the numbers. The feel and just how they're playing. And I think the quality of basketball down the street on Wednesday night at Belmont Lipscomb was much better than Vandy Belmont. The ball moved so much better. There was a lot more defense. The crowd was really into it, which I'd expect that in a normal year, even if Vandy was good, the crowd would be better there. But Billy, it was just such a contrast going there. And like, I was at the scorer's table and the floor under me was shaking because of how loud it was. And then you go to Memorial and we never have to speak up to talk to each other. So just kind of tells you where things are at. And I think it's a big fall from grace as to where they were last year. I talked about it after BC, but it just feels like at that point, Memorial Gym was the place to be in Nashville every time Vandy took the floor. Now I don't think most of Nashville knows when Vandy plays. So it's just big fall from grace. And if results don't happen this year, there's got to be something that happens. Something's got to give here.
Yeah, when that Civil War T-shirt cannon is the loudest thing in the gym.
Oh, that's so loud. Why is it so loud, Billy? I flinch every time.
Yeah, you should. The last one in the San Francisco game was even louder. I looked around, I was like, holy crap. But no, I mean, that's you're right about the crowd. I mean, it's
And that's not the fault of the fan base. It's just what do they have to show up for?
I mean, that's where they're at. That's, we talk about that. We're not saying, hey, this team needs you guys to show up, right? I mean, we're not blaming people, but that's where they're at. It hasn't really gotten better ever since even year one of this tenure. But Joey, you talked about the net, and I'm glad you brought that up. Last year they turned their season around right after a bad start, and you covered that team all season, but they were never ranked as the worst high major in the ratings. High major
They're
team.
never even close to 200.
I mean, the lowest they got was 147, and they finished at 81 last year. Mm-hmm. So just a bad situation. We talked about Lee Dort. That was awful timing, and I think that has probably played a factor right now with this team. And you look over at the women's team, Shea Ralph has that group at 8-1 in year 3.
We need to get Elena on here one day. I will do that at some point soon.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I mean, they deserve it. And so that's just in comparison. Vanderbilt was the lowest high major team in the net, including teams from the ACC, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, Big 10, Big East. They're below Louisville, as you said. The next lowest rated SEC team is LSU at 148. So, the numbers do not lie. And I think they can sort of misread the story sometimes, but they're not misreading it here. I mean, this is accurate. And Joey, of course, it's going to get better. I don't think they finish in the 200s. Maybe they do after this season.
I mean, they're far enough down to where they could. They're closer to 300 than 200, but they got to be in. What do you have to be in to get to the tournament? I think the lowest net team was like 77.
Yeah.
They're 200 spots off from that right now.
Yeah. Naturally, I do think this team gets better. Mm-hmm. I think they get into SEC play and they start to figure things out. But how good does it get, right? What is the ceiling for this team right now? Because I think it looks like, from the looks of it, they got a pretty low floor, yeah. Right? And I think we're just kind of trying to figure out what's this team's ceiling. And quite frankly, right now, Joey, in my mind, it has the looks of a 3 to 4, maybe 5-win SEC team right now.
I think their ceiling is a few fun nights where they pull some upsets, and that's not quite where you want to be at as an SEC team. That's what you want to be at as a middle-tier, mid-major team. Billy, they have good players, and I feel for those guys because I think a lot of those guys have been dealt bad hands, and they're playing, especially like guys like Ezra Mondione, who's playing in his final season, Evan Taylor as well. I think they thought they were going to get a lot more out of this season. They're playing in front of empty gyms. They're not winning games. Those are both really likable guys, and I think a lot of the guys on their roster are. It's just I have a really difficult time finding bright spots and finding reason to believe that this thing's heading in the direction that they hope it is. Just looking at it, I'm trying to think of something I could say that's positive. Jason Rivera-Torres has been good, but he's not even playing enough in my mind. And obviously there's things on the defensive end and such, but he seems to be really their lone bright spot throughout the season. I think everybody really likes Ezra Mondione. That's a bright spot, I guess. I'm just trying to find anything here really, but Billy, it's just such a difficult situation over there. A lot of tension, just maybe not a lot of tension as in people are fighting, just like a tense feel over the whole thing, kind of a clouded feel over the gym. It's not super fun to be around a whole lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think fans are to the point where, they're not showing up. They're not, whether it's, and I quite frankly, I think there's a lot of people that aren't watching. So this
Our
team
game thread had 3 pages. What was the last time a game thread had 3 pages?
Rarely. I mean, I've only hopped on here for last 3 or 4 months here, but I mean, I would assume especially late last year, you had some crazy long game threads. So
yeah,
Joey, something's got to give, and I'm going to keep saying that. Whether it's a player stepping up saying this is unacceptable, I don't know that they have that. I don't. I mean, I think you look at Ezra and Tyron, but maybe are they in the position to do that? Are they comfortable doing that? I mean, where something's got to give, whether it's a player stepping up and making a statement, whether it's Coach Stackhouse doing that, whether it's VAD, somebody has to walk into that locker room and say, let's cut the crap. This is unacceptable, right? Because losses like those at home, I mean, this fan base, they can't bear too many of those, right? And if that's any indicator of how SEC play is going to go, there's going to be a coaching search in the offseason. So that's where we're at. I mean, and it is hard to talk about the team. I have a ton of respect for these players, right? They're very likable guys. I mean, Ezra Mignon put his heart and soul into this program, and even players on last year's team. QMB was a fan favorite.
I think the board was very receptive to QMB. He should have been a fan favorite.
Should have been. I think the fans that showed up, I think gave him respect, right? At least in kind of the in-game game day fan favorite. But that's where they're at, Joey, and it's tough, but that's business. You gotta. There's gonna have to be some business decisions made. Whether it's down the stretch of this season or after the season, because this can't go on.
Yeah, I mean, you look at those pressers and Stack sending a message. How many times did he had to send that message, and we're still here? I mean, he sent it to Tyler Lawrence a lot of times, and we're still having these same things. And it's just hard to see how that morale is up based on everything. You look at Notre Dame when they were down last year, and Mike Brey was buying them donuts. He was taking them out to dinner. I don't really get the impression that that's the case, and I don't get the impression that this thing is going to turn for the better. I mean, sure, they could get a fun night or two here or there, and we would be over the moon if they did that. You know how fun it was to cover that team last year when Stack was going to the presser, dropping one-liners. They had us buried, but we back alive. I mean, they're buried right now, Billy. And if they win 10 games in a row, I don't know that they'd be back alive because of the net. Where do you think they would be in the net if they win 10 games in a row? Outside the 100 still, probably?
Well, let's go through their next 10. They've got Texas Tech on Saturday in Fort Worth. It's going to be tough. Western Carolina.
Good team. I'm questionable for that one. I'm getting my wisdom teeth out that morning.
I mean, Joey, they could go 0-3 in their next 3 games, realistically.
Who's the third again?
Memphis.
Oh, yeah. They could beat Dartmouth.
And then Dartmouth. They could beat Dartmouth.
They could probably get, in a perfect world, maybe they get 1 or 2 of the 3. But Memphis is going to be really difficult.
Yeah, so you got 4 non-con left. And then SEC play starts with the first 6 being Alabama, at LSU, at Ole Miss, Auburn at home, at Mississippi State, and Tennessee at home. So, if there's some good win opportunities in there, and there's also, teams like LSU and Ole Miss, and maybe even Mississippi State, I think, are beatable. Tennessee and Bama are going to be tough, but I think if they, after that stretch, if we're sitting here saying Vanderbilt has won 7 of their last 10, I don't know, they're still in the 100s, I mean, probably 140, 150, I would guess after that. I don't know. Margin of victory is big too.
Yeah.
And that's one thing they haven't done. I mean, that's the biggest flaw in the net. A huge metric flaw. And coaches all across the country, when they play a team like Sisters of the Poor, they're putting it on them. So, and that hasn't happened. What's their biggest win margin-wise this year?
Alabama A&M by 19. And
by 19. I mean, if you would have found a way to beat them by 30 plus, like you should have, or 40 plus, you'd be a little bit higher in the net right now. Definitely not really 280 or 290. Yeah, I mean,
except EJ Williams, love that guy.
Yeah,
we're big EJ Williams fans.
Yeah, but no, yeah, you're right, Joe. Even if they do win the next 10, or if go on a crazy win streak, the hole has been dug. And I hate that has sunk into probably a lot of the minds of the players and maybe even the staff. But at the end of the day, you do have a lot of season left. How many games they've played? 9 games. I mean, you got a ton of basketball left. That's what this coaching staff should be saying to the team. Listen, it's still early, right? SEC play. You got 4 non-conference games. to get our confidence up, get into SEC play, and let's figure something out, right? Let's figure out how we can win with these guys we got. That's the hope, right? That's the positivity. I think it's still early. But the more you play, the later you get, and that hole gets a little bit deeper. So
yeah, I don't think our coverage has generally been doom and gloom. You look at my coverage from last year; it's far from doom and gloom. And Billy, I think, is a little more positive than I am. But it's impossible not to be that way right now. There's stuff we could be saying that we're not saying, and we're still coming off as doom and gloom. That's just kind of how this thing is. You saw how we talked about football. They went 2-10, and we have so much optimism about where the program can go. It's just so difficult right now to find that with this program, and people could have a problem with that, but you got to tell it like it is at some point, and that's kind of where we're at. It's just, there's a lot of basketball to be played. That's probably the biggest thing. Jason Vera-Torres could be a player for him. But even let's say they win 10 SEC games, they don't make the tournament, they keep Stackhouse. I don't know that they have, or I have a whole lot of confidence that they can retain that roster, and I don't know that I have a whole lot of confidence that they can turn it around next year. I think probably the biggest positive with that program is that we've seen that they have some NIL backing, and that's probably what I'm hanging my hat on if I'm them. And maybe that's an appeal if they get a new coach, is that they can do something in the portal. And you've seen that football can maybe do that, and basketball, I think, is on a similar maybe path. You saw it last offseason. They got 2 guys with big NIL deals, and they've paid some of their in-house guys as well. They got a chance to do something this offseason, but right now it's just so difficult to see a path to the tournament for them.
It's tough. The path is tough to see. And Joey, they've got Texas Tech next Saturday, 6:30 tip-off at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. Part of
that arena. I don't like that arena at all.
Yeah, it's part of the USLBM Coast to Coast Challenge. I think Arizona State plays somebody, so they'll get to see the Arizona State guys back in there. Tech's a good team. They're coming off a down year, but I think they're a little bit better this year. Not great, but that's kind of a toss up. I'm interested to see what the line will be for that. But Texas Tech will probably have a lot of fans there, so that'll be tough for Vandy. And then right after, well coached. Yeah, and then right after that, they got to turn around and play a really good Western Carolina team.
Oh, very good.
Tuesday night, I'll be there. Looking forward to it because I think that'll be a game where some gears will be turning. I think within. Of course, they're already turning with fans, but potentially if they drop that one after dropping Tech, it sort of gets real. Not that it's
they're a good team. Their coach is going to get a Power 5 job after this year. You're going to get to see a great up and comer.
Yeah. And then they travel to Memphis. I think we planned on going to that before the season, but I don't know if that's going to work out. That's on CBS though. So should be a good opportunity for Vandy to maybe prove themselves on a national scale, and then Dartmouth, and then they kick off SEC play against Alabama. So that's kind of where they're at, Joey. Of course, had 10 days off after San Fran for finals, and so maybe just maybe they figure some things out here in these next 6-7 days or so before they head out to Fort Worth. Again, it's tough to see, but long season's still got basketball left, and we'll see what happens with the Doors. But Joey, any last final thoughts on whether it's football or basketball in our State of the Union?
Yeah, football, good vibes. Basketball, not so much. Billy and I will be the first to tell you positive things if we can tell you positive things.
Yeah.
Right now, we're not in good conscience. We're not in a good position to do that right now. It could happen. I would love to talk about that. I had so much fun last year covering that team. Right now, though, it's not as fun right now, and maybe it'll be that way, but it's just hard to see a path to the tournament, even if it is that way and it becomes that way down the stretch. But a lot of basketball left. SEC play is the most important part of the season, although I think we figured out they're all pretty important. They got a lot of fun players, and if you're trying to find something to support, like we try to platform those guys as much as possible. I think that it's hard to kind of say they have a lot of good guys after what happened with Lee Dort, but I genuinely believe like Evan Taylor and Ezra Manjon and guys like that are really good guys, and that's kind of what I look at. And we don't like to kill those guys because I think everybody on that roster is trying, and it's just not working. And you gotta blame somebody. So Stackhouse is ultimately the guy that we blame there. But we want to talk positively. It's just very difficult right now, and I think most people understand that.
So that'll send us home again. Vanderbilt, Texas Tech next Saturday. So got
Billy Derrick's on the hot seat right now. He has a big game Saturday as well.
Yeah.
I'm on the fire Billy Derrick train for the 4th grade basketball team. I think he needs to go.
It's early, man. We got through 2 games, Joey.
I don't know. I'm not seeing results. I might need to come to the game next Saturday to see what we're working with.
Yeah, come see it for yourself. I mean, I'm not working with a ton of talent here.
Really? But, wow. Dating your brother like that.
But no, all in all, basketball tough vibes, football not great vibes, but I mean it's better than the season. And we said that's what the case would be. But that's Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you again soon with more episodes of the Vandy Sports Podcast.